Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. Alright everyone, welcome to episode 114 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random garbage.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan's parliament convenes extraordinary session with around 20 new bills to be considered.
Japanese government eyes new package to fight inflation, the weak yen, and rev up the economy.
Tokyo Wagashi sweets firm chief resigns after road rage incident spreads online.
This week in Japan. Alright, so our first story. Japan's parliament convenes extraordinary session with around 20 new bills to be considered.
You know, it's kind of funny they call it an extraordinary session because they do it every year.
I guess just to add emphasis, like, guys, we're really doing it this time. This is really special.
Yep. So, Japan's parliament has convened an extraordinary session, woohoo, on October the 3rd, with opposition parties aiming to grill Prime Minister Fumio Kishida over links between his party and a controversial religious group.
The session will continue for 69 days through December 10th, amidst dwindling approval ratings for Kishida's cabinet.
69 days, eh? Interesting. So, opposition parties have called on Kishida to explain ties between his Liberal Democratic Party and the Unification Church, as well as the state funeral for former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was fatally shot during an election campaign speech in July.
Abe's state funeral, held on September 27th, drew criticism for lacking a legal basis and its ballooning costs. The government allocated more than 1.6 billion yen, that's about $11 million, of taxpayers' money for the event. The first state funeral for a former prime minister in 55 years.
You know, some of our listeners I'm sure have varying opinions on this, but I think, 11 million bucks is a drop in the budget of Japan's budget, and it is pretty hard to deny that Prime Minister Abe was really a driving force behind a lot of the Japan that we know today. Through his 8 years of serving as Japan's prime minister, the longest ever serving prime minister.
Yeah, probably a bit of my opinion is going to leak out here, but I think any democratic nation that has a leader or former leader or important leader assassinated has a duty to give them a proper funeral that involves the other countries that they're closely tied to and allies with.
Personally, I was moved by a speech given by another former Prime Minister, Yoshihide Suga, who served as Abe's chief cabinet secretary for the duration of his tenure and was really one of his closest allies, even before he became Prime Minister for the second time. And Suga was, of course, actually known as the person who convinced Abe to run for the LDP presidency, which later resulted in the victory in December 2012 that began his leadership as prime minister.
Right.
And you could really see the emotion in Suga when he was giving that speech. And I thought two things. The first thing I thought was, that's a true friendship, and he's really speaking from the heart, and it really showed a side of Suga that I don't think we've ever seen before. Because Suga was really known as a very straight to the point, very, he wasn't very emotional. He wasn't very, some people say he wasn't very charismatic. He was very good at deflecting questions from the media when he was chief cabinet secretary, but as prime minister, he was not so great under pressure.
Right.
But we really never saw this emotional side of Suga, but we saw it at the state funeral. And of course, that leads me to the other point, is that, man, I wish he would have shown that side of himself and been more of an emotional leader during his tenure as prime minister, and really sort of brought the Japanese people together, of course, during probably the worst part of the pandemic in Japan. Well, actually, not technically the worst part, but everybody thought it was the worst part. But unfortunately, that didn't really work out. So obviously now we have Prime Minister Kishida, who also isn't very emotional or charging or particularly a firebrand. Which
Right.
sort of made him the kind of compromised choice in the LDP election, which led to him becoming prime minister. But, that emotion and that sort of, really showing the public who you are as a person was something that I thought former Prime Minister Abe did really well. But after that, we haven't really seen that in Japanese leadership.
I would agree.
So, regarding the Unification Church, founded by a staunch anti-communist in South Korea in 1954, there is growing concern about the controversial religious organization's links with ruling party lawmakers.
The organization, often labeled a cult, has come under scrutiny since Abe's assassination. The gunman, Tetsuya Yamagami, has been quoted by investigative sources as saying he harbored a grudge as his mother's substantial donations to the church had ruined his family's finances, and Abe was targeted because of alleged links to the group.
In 2021, Abe appeared in a video message aired at an event held by an organization affiliated with the church.
The LDP has pledged to sever ties with the Unification Church, and an internal investigation found around half of the party's lawmakers had some connection with the organization.
This is going to be quite a pickle for the LDP to get out of. Of course, it's complicated because at the end of the day, politicians need money to run election campaigns. And so they ask for donations from individuals, from companies, and really from anybody who will give them donations. And if there is a very cash-rich religious organization willing to bankroll this or that, it's kind of hard to say no if you're not getting a lot of donations from individuals and companies, which in recent years has been an increasing trend as companies are distancing themselves from being seen as too tight with certain political parties or politicians, and individuals are also being less generous than they were in Japan's glory days.
To go down this rabbit hole further, Parker, I would say that all political organizations worldwide are tied up with many gray and nebulous, strange, organizations. I mean, if they really wanted to go through and look at all the organizations the LDP is tied up with, look at all the organizations that the other Japanese political groups are tied up with, I mean, I think there would be no surprise. There'd be lots of fringe groups that they're getting money from.
Well, and also I think former President Trump also appeared in a video message at some Unification Church event.
No way, really?
Yeah, and I mean, lots of similar stories have emerged. I mean, long story short, the Unification Church has a lot of money, and politicians like getting donations.
Of course.
Unfortunately, that is how the cookie crumbles in that particular situation.
The government is considering submitting around 20 bills to the Diet during the upcoming session, including a second supplementary budget bill for the fiscal year through March 2023 to address rising food and energy prices.
Yeah, and as we're going to discuss in our next segment, a lot of these bills are in concept form, but they really haven't been shown to the public or sort of brought to light yet. So we don't really know what we're going to get quite yet.
Yeah. All right, and up next, Japanese government eyes new package to fight inflation, the weak yen, and rev up the economy.
Kyodo News has reported that a new economic package is expected to be drawn up in October that will focus on mitigating the blow from rising prices and a weaker yen, spurring a wage growth and revitalizing the economy through investment.
Prime Minister Fumio Kishida told reporters that in addition to bold measures focusing on the three priority areas, the package would also include launching a new mechanism to help cope with higher electricity bills amid surging natural gas prices caused by Russia's war in Ukraine, adding that the details have not yet been worked out.
Yeah, as I said, lots of new bills, no idea what's in them.
Sounds kind of like the US.
That's politics, baby.
Yeah.
So the envisaged package comes on top of relief measures already announced to mitigate the impact of higher energy and food prices on households.
Kishida said at the Prime Minister's office, "We have seen electricity bills jump 20 to 30% from a year earlier, putting heavier burdens on households and companies."
Some senior lawmakers from the ruling Liberal Democratic Party are calling for an economic package worth around 30 trillion yen, that's 207 billion US dollars.
I don't want any economic packages. I want them to do something about the yen. Gosh, it's just like... It's like
we're getting poorer every day.
It's like we're all on like this crappy little canoe raft or something, and there's a hole in it, and they're trying to stop water getting in by using a rock. You know? It's just, I don't know. Kishida will instruct officials to speed up the drafting of the package as the government plans to compile an extra budget and seek its passage during the current extraordinary Diet session.
The yen's sharp drop against the US dollar has dealt a blow to Japanese households already struggling amid the rising cost of living, heightening concerns among policymakers. A tumbling yen has inflated import prices of energy, food, and other raw materials for resource-scarce Japan.
So, you know, Parker, I was like really freaking out about the yen, but a friend posted this the other day. The Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar, euros, the British pound.
Oh, the British pound is in the toilet right now.
It's insane. The British pound, man. It's like, that is, it's the lowest since 1985.
Well, I think it's time to go and buy some Bentleys, Mr. Randall.
Hell yeah. I mean, you know, if you look at this graph, you can see Japan dropped off a lot sooner, earlier this year, before all these other currencies. And I was really not expecting the other currencies to all follow suit. But I mean, look at this. This is insane. How is the US dollar so high and every other major currency so low right now? The US cannot just keep jacking up these interest rates. I mean, I was thinking of making a meme where like, the Fed comes out like, okay, the new rate hike is 100%, you know, because they keep doing like, you know, 0.25, 0.75%. It's too much. I mean, inflation is so bad in the US right now too.
Yeah, I think that obviously they've got their reasons for doing what they're doing, but it's also going to have implications for people in the US as well.
For sure. Kishida also said, Social and economic activity has been returning to near normal, but soaring energy and food prices have hit households, and concerns about a global economic slowdown have become a risk to the Japanese economy.
Japan's economy has been slow to recover from the pandemic fallout, and the rising cost of living is now denting consumer sentiment. Economists expect economic growth to continue, but at a moderate pace.
In late September, the cabinet decided to use a 3.48 trillion yen in reserve funds for the current fiscal year from April to fund the relief measures, which include giving 50,000 yen to each low-income household and retaining subsidies to oil wholesalers to limit the rise in retail gasoline and kerosene prices.
In rosier news, those travel coupons are coming back.
Oh, Go To, right?
I don't know if they're going to call it Go To. I don't know if a new brand name has been announced or whatever.
But travel's going to be cheap domestic.
Don't be cheap!
Yeah, a bunch of, after the October 11th news where the country's opening up, for those who don't know, by the way, everyone can get to Japan visa-free from October 11th.
Not everyone. It's like 69 countries.
A bunch of my friends have booked trips to Japan, and some of them got tickets for like $600 round trip. It's like insane. So I think the airlines are also, they're just pushing the prices down temporarily.
Yeah, and everything in Japan's on sale, baby.
Exactly.
Come to Japan. Your country's probably going to hell in a handbasket, but Japan's just fine. Come on over. Green tea and onsens. And up next, Tokyo Wagashi sweets firm chief resigns after road rage incident spreads online.
The Mainichi has reported that a long-established Japanese Wagashi confectionary company announced on September 28th that its president would resign after video of his raging response to a car accident trended on social media, sparking severe criticism of his actions.
According to the Funabashia company based in Tokyo's Edogawa ward, President Masashi Watanabe was driving a passenger car through an intersection in Tokyo's Chiyoda ward on August the 24th when he collided with another vehicle turning right.
Dashcam video from the other vehicle showed Watanabe, 58, getting out of his car and yelling, "Where the hell did you come from, you son of a bitch?" followed by the sound of him kicking the vehicle's door. The video spread on Twitter, and many people posted comments condemning Watanabe's behavior, such as, "I didn't realize that such an asshole was the CEO," and "I'm shocked because I really like their delicious Kuzamuchi sweets," the firm's signature product.
The company stated that the accident and his response as seen in the video were generally an accurate record of events and unacceptable. No shit, Sherlock.
Watanabe reported the accident to police, apologized to the other party, and a settlement was reached. He apparently did not notice the intersection light had turned red before he entered it and struck a car entering from the right.
So basically, he was at fault, but he thought he wasn't, so he got pissed off.
Yeah. Hey, that happens in America every day,
True, but people get shot. So the company explained that immediately after the accident, the president became agitated because he thought he had been hit by the other car, leading to the behavior shown in the video. Watanabe has fully admitted his negligence and offered his resignation on September the 28th.
Funabashia plans to accept his resignation and commented, "We apologize again to our customers and other concerned parties for any concern or inconvenience caused by online postings regarding the accident and his subsequent behavior. It will also consider measures to prevent a reoccurrence."
Like what? So the company was founded in the Edo period and produces Japanese sweets, especially kuzumochi and anmitsu. It runs many shops in department stores in Tokyo and other locations across Japan.
That's wild. We have it written right here. 1603 to 1867, for those who don't know the Edo period. It's quite a long time to be in business.
Yeah, it's like an over 400-year-old company.
So they don't really give a shit about the president.
Yeah, I don't know if he was a part of the founding family or just a hired gun or...
Yeah.
It didn't mention that. These tend to be family businesses, though, so... Can you imagine the interview process for that? So, do you have a tendency to be an asshole when you get into traffic accidents?
All right, and coming up next on Random Inaka, we're going to be talking about Oku Nikko.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Tokyo Wave.
So autumn is coming, and that means that Japan's picturesque autumn foliage will soon be the focal point of the season.
Listeners based in Tokyo or planning to come to Japan in the coming months should know that there are some absolutely awesome spots to enjoy breathtaking views.
And there are a lot around Tokyo, but of course, since this is Random Inaka, I wanted to introduce one of my personal favorites, Oku Nikko, which is basically the mountains and hills to the north of the Nikko Station area and the perennially popular Toshogu Shrine, which is a magnificent memorial to Tokugawa Ieyasu, the founder of the Tokugawa shogunate that ruled until the end of Japan's feudal period, which also happens to look pretty awesome in autumn.
As far as other popular spots go, Ryuzu Falls is a major waterfall in the Oku Nikko area, together with Kegon Falls, located near Lake Chuzenji, and Yudaki Falls, which runs from Yuno Lake. Ryuzu Falls is regarded as one of Oku Nikko's 3 great waterfalls.
I love how they have 3 great waterfalls. Like the other waterfalls, sorry, you didn't make the cut. We could only pick 3. So the falls are split into 2 by a large boulder near its basin. The sight of the water gushing from that viewpoint is simply stunning. There's also an observation deck, tea house, and a walkway nearby.
That being said, the beauty of Oku Nikko is that it is massive and dotted with beautiful surroundings and nice ryokan inns offering traditional accommodations and great local food. So you don't necessarily have to go to a famous spot packed with tourists to have a great time.
We do have to mention that Oku Nikko doesn't have the best access to public transport. So if you are able to take your car or rent one, which if you are a tourist from overseas, you can do if you obtain an international driving permit before coming to Japan.
Also to the north of Nikko is Kinuga Onsen district, which has several riverside hot spring hotels that cater to all kinds of travelers and budgets.
Also, if you take the main road or the Tobu line north of Kinuga Onsen, you can actually go all the way north up to Aizu Wakamatsu alongside rivers and through mountains. It is an awesome drive and probably a pretty fun train ride too. Aizu Wakamatsu itself is another interesting destination in the westernmost part of Fukushima Prefecture, which is itself famous for its award-winning sake and its samurai tradition.
So, Parker, right now is actually my favorite season in Japan. Autumn.
Autumn is the shit.
It's awesome. Minus the typhoons, of course. But, Japan doesn't really get that big of typhoons. And Tokyo seems to be pretty safe most of the time. I love so much, because I come from Florida, right? And the summers in Tokyo and Orlando, Florida are pretty similar. But in Florida, we don't have that nice, swift move into the cool nights and, colorful trees that we have here in Tokyo in autumn. So, this is like really one of the best times to be in Japan. It's always been my favorite. This is the first month I ever came to Japan too. When I first visited was September. So it was like whenever September rolls around, and October as well, because they're very similar, I get so many great memories of coming to Japan for the first time. You know, right now we can really go out and freely travel around, you know, and it's not so hot. It's not too cold. It's just right, you know?
Yeah, you can drive around with the windows open.
Oh.
It's such a nice feeling, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love the autumn foliage in Japan. And of course, you know, there are spots around the world that are famous for autumn foliage. And of course, Kyoto is famous for its autumn foliage. And there are so many touristic hotspots. The only problem, though, is that they're always packed with tourists because everywhere that you read about in Lonely Planet, you know, everybody else has read about it too. So my suggestion to people, whether you're a resident looking to get away from it all or you're a tourist coming here on vacation, is find somewhere that has a really bad description online that seems to have some sort of autumny thing going on. Go there. I mean, Oku Nikko is probably one of the more popular destinations, but the fact that it's so big, I mean, literally you can just drive or, you know, take that train beyond Kinuga Onsen and all of a sudden it becomes proper Inaka or the Japanese countryside. Right. And, you know, you really, I mean, literally you go alongside the river and, you know, through the mountains, and it's really a beautiful drive. I mean, when I went last, it was just like, especially the momiji trees, they turn this bright red, right? And it's amazing.
Yeah. You know, there's some really beautiful spots in Tokyo, Okayama area, which has the Tokyo Institute of Technology. The trees there are so beautiful. Like that campus, you can walk through it too. Anyone can walk through it. I used to work out there, and like it is shockingly beautiful in autumn, and it smells like autumn. Some people don't like that smell so much, you know, it can be very overwhelming. But it's really nice out there.
The smells of autumn. The new fragrance from Tokyo Wave.
And, you know, Parker, I just went to Hakone in June with some friends. It was so crowded, right? And this is before, like, now that we have, you know, October 10th, as you said, 69 countries are going to be able to come in visa free. We're going to have all these, basically a go-to travel campaign with a different name, probably. But it's going to, you know, increase tourism to all of the main terminal areas like Hakone, Karuizawa, Kyoto. Don't go there. Try to check something else out, because it's just going to be so incredibly, outstandingly crowded.
Yeah, like you thought you knew crowded. Japan will show you crowded.
Yeah.
We do crowds like nobody else.
Yeah. I think the worst crowd I was ever in Japan was one of the fireworks festivals in Tokyo. And we got off the train and it took 2 hours to exit the station because of just how slow people are moving. That it can get that bad.
Yeah, the crowds really ruined Tokyo's fireworks festivals for me.
For sure.
And in addition to that, in Kyoto, I remember going to Kinkakuji before the pandemic in around 2018, and it was just like literally a line, and like people just very slowly moving through this path. And I mean, it was worse than being in a department store in like the New Year's bargain sale.
It's very chaotic too, because the Japanese have their own rule set and everyone's following those rules, but then most of the other tourists, no one's following the rules. And it's just after going to like 2 places in Kyoto, like during especially travel season and stuff, it's just like, I just want to go back to the hotel and relax. You know,
it's exhausting.
It's very exhausting. Yeah.
Yes, it's like whether it's Oku Nikko or somewhere else, you know, just pick the most random place you can find, go there. Literally, that is where you experience the real Japan.
Another good thing to do too is hotel chains. Like there's some really good hotel chains that have kind of off the beaten path spots, right? Like for example, Prince hotels, you see them in most major terminal areas, but if you look at like all their locations and maybe you see something that you've never heard of before, maybe check that out instead. More novel experience, less people. There's still going to be a lot of people, I guarantee. But it's going to be not as bad as Kyoto and Hakone are going to get when mid-October.
Prince Hotels has actually a handful of hotels which aren't branded as Prince Hotels, but they're run by the Prince Hotels group.
Oh, wow.
And two of my favorites, actually both on the Izu Peninsula, they are the Sanyoso Ryokan and the Kawana Hotel near Izu Kogen. And so the first one that I mentioned, Sanyoso, to be honest, it is not the cheapest accommodation. Rates can be pretty high, depending on, of course, when you book. Obviously, weekends are usually more expensive. But the thing about it that makes Sanyoso special is it is built around the residence of one of the founding family of the Mitsubishi conglomerate. So it has this amazing and immaculate Japanese garden.
Ooh, nice.
Which I'm sure looks pretty badass in fall. Although I don't think I've been in fall yet. But the food is good. The rooms are big. It is awesome. And it's also not in, a popular, massive tourist destination. So, if you're going by public transport, you probably have to, take their bus there or something like that. But it is an awesome hotel. The service is great. I mean, I could not say enough good things about this hotel. I absolutely love it.
So I think our message to our listeners, especially those coming into Japan for the first time in a while, maybe mid-October or after that, be adventurous, go off the beaten path, explore, because this country is an amazing place to explore and to find new things.
Definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people forget about like Tohoku. Like if you look at a heat map of like tourism around Japan, nobody goes to Tohoku.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are certain spots in Akita that are really popular, and there are some onsen towns here and there, and in winter you've got the ski resorts, but other than that, most of Tohoku is really, with regards to tourism, sort of a no man's land.
Right.
Not in the sense that there's nothing to see and do. There's lots to see and do. It's just that tourists don't go there because they don't know about it. And it's big.
Yeah. I went to Akita and did a homestay in January when I first came to Japan and skied up there and everything. Akita's great. The snow there is amazing.
That's a beautiful prefecture.
Yeah.
And of course, we've mentioned it on a previous episode long ago of Random Inaka, the place that I have a deep personal connection to, Tono City in Iwate Prefecture, which the former mayor of my hometown Chattanooga once said is a hop, skip, and a jump away, because you have to take the Shinkansen up to Shinhanamaki Station and then take a train that winds through the mountains for about an hour or so until you reach Tono. But it's a very walkable city. There's not a lot of foreign tourists. It's absolutely beautiful. And you can really experience a Japan that is really untouched by, tourism this and, hotspot that. And it's really a hidden gem.
Parker, as you were talking about Iwate, I was just thinking about the trips that I used to take with this old Japanese company, and we would go to Kanazawa, we went to Fukuoka, lots of drinking, lots of really going to places that are really off the beaten path. They would purposely choose these kind of gigantic hotels that were made to house 200 employees from company X for like a 2 to 3 day binger. I'm just hanging out inside the hotel in Onsen. But yeah, there's just so much here. It's ridiculous. I really hope Japan can return to the pre-COVID tourism levels that we saw, 2018, 2019, really all through the 2010s leading up to COVID. The tourism numbers were insane, right? Like the average tourist that visits Japan once came back 7 times on average or something like that. Like it just had incredible, stats as well. So
definitely. Well, I actually posted this on Twitter as well, but my advice to anyone planning travel to Japan as it's about to open as a tourist is simply come for as long as you can, spend a couple of days in Tokyo or Kyoto or whatever to get your fill, but try and spend a week or 2 out somewhere there that you've never heard of.
Yeah,
that's probably where you're going to have the most interesting experiences.
Someone should build some kind of platform that encourages people to post content about places that are off the beaten path.
Yeah, that would be a really good idea. Well, unfortunately, Matt's not with us today, so he cannot plug Akiya and Inaka, but that is exactly the sort of platform that we would be talking about.
Absolutely. Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.